You ever heard that Ghetto Boys song, My Mind is Playing Tricks on Me? Well, today we're going to talk about how our mind plays tricks on us in our sales process. Hey there, my friends. Welcome back. I wanted to talk to you about something today because if you follow the show, you'll know that a couple of weeks back now, maybe 2 weeks back, I spoke about a strategy when we're learning something new, right? And it was when I was going to the office, where I would learn one street at a time as I started to not want my GPS on because it kept interrupting my podcasts and my audiobooks. And I felt there was this disconnect when I got interrupted where it would take me a couple of minutes to get back in. And all of a sudden it's like, now you're coming up in 330 meters to turn right. And it was this constant, I'm not going to say frustration, but disruption in what I was trying to do. Because part of what I love to do when I'm driving is learn and educate myself. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I have mindless desires to just zone out and just drive. But for the most part, I want to learn. I want to educate myself. I want to learn something. And even if it's in the ground, right? Like if you have an animal and say you go for a WALK with the animal in the morning or whatever the case may be, sometimes we're listening to something and it's that one sentence that's like, ooh, and it piques our interest, right? Same scenario when I'm driving to work. Sometimes I drive, kind of allow my subconscious, or sometimes I'm fully alert. But back to the story. So as I was sharing with you 2 weeks ago, call it, about, being able to turn and kind of go 1-2 streets at a time every time. And within a week or two, you have both the to work and home from work literally mapped out. Well, it was interesting. So we're on week 5 now. So it's taken me about 2.5 weeks to get the home and the getting to the office done. And over the last, I'm going to call it week and a half to 2 weeks, I haven't needed a GPS going to work in the morning. But it's interesting. We're sitting here on Friday. What are we now? The 11th of October. And on Monday, it was foggy, super foggy. And as soon as I got into the area that I just started getting into 5 weeks ago, I felt a flutter in my heart and I felt a flutter in my gut. And I knew immediately it was this anxiety, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it fear, but this anxiety that was going, oh my gosh, what if I miss my turn? Now, here's the thing. I knew the route. I'd been running the route for weeks. No GPS, never had that thought. As soon as something new came into the picture, my mind reverted back to those old thoughts. And I started asking myself, how does this apply to our sales? Not only how does it apply to our sales, but how does it apply to our careers? What we want to do, why we want to do it, how we want to do it. Like, when have you had thought come into a process that you just started, which made you think, I don't know what I'm doing. What if I miss this turn? What if I miss this opportunity? See, I think we all go through this. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we go through it more often than not. And I had a friend ask me yesterday, actually, as I was explaining this entire process to him. And he said, Dan, he goes, how do you always think of that? And I said, well, all I'm doing is paying attention. So in other words, what might have happened if I wasn't paying attention? Let's say hypothetically, I'm driving and I'm allowing my subconscious to drive me to work. Immediately, or actually, let me rephrase this because I think it's different for everyone. So if I really didn't care about having a GPS on and disrupting my automobile university, then I probably would have just turned the GPS on and never thought through this entire process. And I think when we do that, we leave ourselves open for the old to come back. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've just started a new sales process, or you're kind of working on a new strategy because maybe the one you were using just wasn't working in today's day and age because, the fundamentals of sales are the same. It's the medium in which you deliver those fundamentals that is in constant shift, right? And the best thing is to look at, a decade ago, it was email. Everybody was opening every email because they wanted to open their emails maybe 15 years ago. Now, a lot of people, including myself, I come in the morning, I scan my emails. All I do is look for the emails that I'm looking for people to get back from me, to me on, or looking for the emails that I need to get back to other people on. Otherwise, I don't open any other one. So if somebody's trying to sell me something via email, that subject line better catch my attention, right? Whereas 15 years ago, I'd open it and read every one because it was this, oh my God, I can't miss anything, right? But where I am now, and I don't know necessarily if it's the time, but I think it's more the individual that you're dealing with, right? If that individual is just getting into the workforce and they're, they want to make sure their inbox is clean and, there's a difference in personality that happens. So I started saying, well, maybe it's just my different personality and the fact that, I don't want my GPS on because I find it disturbing. Whereas other people might not care. They might be, passively listening to a podcast or something, just whatever. I'm enjoying my drive. Got my coffee, got my whole fancy mug this morning too. Got coffee. I'm good. And that's possible, to each his own. So it's understanding this and walking through that. Then I started really thinking, well, why? Why am I worried about missing a street? I know the street. It's not like I can't see 3 feet in front of me. So I could see, 4 or 5 car lengths in front of me. So I know the street. I've been doing this, but it's not, I guess, ingrained. And I started listening to a podcast with Dr. Joe Dispenza and Lewis Habs. And he was talking about, because one of the questions from the audience was, how long does it take to implement something new into your head, like a new route, a new routine, a new thing? And he said, it's not necessarily time, it's repeating it. Okay. Bob Proctor taught me early on in my, and God bless his soul, he taught me early on in my personal development career, he says, repetition is the first law of learning. So what neuroscience is starting to tell us is this repetition that we do, as opposed to a time, is the first law of implanting these new strategies and ideas in my head. So I started thinking about that. I started saying to myself, okay, so I've replicated this drive many, many times. Why, Dan? Why are you all of a sudden got this anxiety that you're going to miss a turn? Like, what is the realism behind that? And you see, I don't think there was any. I think it was just something that automatically triggers in us. And, that automatic trigger, I think, is happening to a lot of people on a daily basis. And I'm not going to say it's this time of year, it's your career. I think it's when there's change. And maybe your company, your processes, your sales has gone through dramatic change in the last year, in the last 2 months, in the last 6 months. Maybe your situation has gone through dramatic change. And if it has, that fear is real, right? Because you're feeling it. It's an emotion. Now, some people say, well, fear, it's false evidence appearing real and blah, blah, blah. But I think the fear is real. Question is, what are we going to do with it? Like, how are we going to manage that fear so it doesn't take control of us and we step backwards? That was the big question. And as my hand was reaching for the GPS, I said, whoa, time out now. And if you were driving beside me, you're like, pretty sure this person's on the phone, because I was having a full-fledged conversation with myself about, well, why would I want to do that? And I said, well, I'm not really sure of the streets. And well, yes, you are sure of the streets because you've driven it many times before with zero thought of a GPS. It's not like I was going, okay, where is it up here? And you're driving, you got your finger just about to hit the GPS. You're like, oh, yeah, there it is. It was, I literally was driving without even really paying attention. I think there was one point I was paying attention with. I don't even know why, but it was a split in the road that I was paying attention with. When I know, I always go right. So it was just one of these things. And, I went, so this conversation I'm having with myself was actually pretty enlightening because in the end, I never turned on the GPS. Yes. Thanks, Dan. Yeah. But it was, what I learned from was the biggest piece is to take a step back. If you've done it before, it means you can do it. You can replicate it again. If you've replicated it twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, if you're getting that repetition in and there's this little pebble that gets thrown in your way, brush it aside and continue the repetitions. And, even to the point where I said to myself, if I miss a street, so what? I miss a street. If I'm late, I'm late. But I would rather allow my internal, belief in myself or belief in the process kick in. And if I am late, so be it. But I'm not going to ruin that. And this goes back to, a lot of this, the nucleus of a lot of this that I'm sharing with you today comes from what I was talking about, again, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago in one of the podcasts where we're the only person that hears every lie we tell ourselves, right? And that comes to point of, well, hey, if I say I'm going to get up at 5 and 5 comes and I hit my alarm till 5:30, subconsciously you're like, okay, check mark, can't trust myself, right? And so I'm really on this kick of trusting myself, believing in what I can do, how I do it, why I do it. We're at a major growth point, and that major growth point for me is to see sales reps grow and develop and build multi-million-dollar careers that benefit them and their family. So there's a lot of pressure, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better term. Yeah, pressure, right? Because every single sales rep we bring on, they're now, I feel, obligated to make sure they succeed. Now, if I'm pushing them to succeed, but I'm retracting, what does that say about me? See, and I think of these things, and somebody might not think of them, but I do. And I think, how could I ask somebody to push themselves forward? How can I ask somebody to step out of their comfort zone today? If as soon as my comfort zone steps out, I go and grab on, which in this case was the GPS, I grab on to that thing that maybe makes me feel comfortable. You can't ask somebody to do something you're not willing to do. So for all you managers out there that aren't stepping out of your comfort zones, that aren't up to the way sales is going and what's needed and the new strategies, ideas and all, don't expect to be able to teach your team that. For all you salespeople that said, this strategy's working and it's helping me and it's working. And then there's a little monkey wrench or there's a little pebble thrown in. Don't take a step back. Continue that step forward. And you know what? If we fall, we fall. I don't be concerned about temporary defeat. There is no failure unless you give up. Don't be concerned about temporary defeat. But if you have a true defining purpose, and this is a piece to get you to that next rung, right? Remember, we all have 10 more rungs in our ladder that we could, and I'm all about the salmon ladder where I jump 2 rungs at a time, but we all have 10 rungs ahead of us. And don't be afraid to grab onto those rungs. Sometimes your head will slip and you'll go down a rung. Okay. But if we unintentionally, because we're not paying attention, go down a rung, you're going to go up 1, down 2, up 1, down 2, and you're never going to get ahead. And I think this is one of the pieces of the puzzle that not too many people pay enough attention to. Maybe you pay attention to it for 2 weeks and then you slip back into the norm. right? It's another reason I say constantly, like if you're going to build something new, build it into your workflow first, right? And some of you are probably sitting there saying, Dan, yeah, I hear you. But what about the show? I'm still trying to build that into my workflow 6 weeks later. Like, this is the thing is last week we had 3 or 4 episodes. This week we've had 2 because I'm still trying to build it into my workflow. So every time I go to do it, I'm finding a speed bump. Okay, that didn't work. The next one, that didn't work. I tried batch recording. That didn't work because something happened on the weekend and I got tied up with other stuff. So it's like putting these things into our workflow to make sure we're consistent. So I apologize. I'm not being consistent with y'all right now. My plan is I've got an hour booked out tonight to put that consistency roadmap in place. And I've locked it out on a Friday night, people. I've locked it out on a Friday night to make sure it happens. This is just some things we have to do if we're really wanting to add more to our plate without losing what we have. It's that I like this strategy to add it to your workflow. And some of you might be like, well, Dan, I don't quite get that. So to close out today, because I know I'm running a bit over what I promised you guys that I'd usually talk when I'm by myself. Think of it like this, right? When you first started, and I'm sure hopefully all of you can remember back to the days when you first started the industry, right? You made a wicked amount of sales. So you were constantly either on email, sales calls, doing LinkedIn videos, doing selling, so on and so forth, right? Then what happens, right? Then you get a few customers and all of a sudden your sales calls, your prospecting, your follow-ups drop because your day has more time spent with your clients, right? Or solving problems, booking freight, right? This was one of the things when I was leading the DC, the development center was, we had a rule, X amount of GP, and then you get assisted ops because we wanted sales reps to really understand the operations piece of the business, because I truly believe if they didn't understand it, they would never really truly have good idea of what their team goes through. And if you don't understand what they're going through, you can't, lead. You can't teamwork doesn't work. Like nothing works because you don't understand their process and what their kind of ceiling is based on the work they have. So we had, I believe it was $20,000 a month in GP. So if they made 20,000 GP, they would get an ops person. And it was that like 15 to 20,000, which was the toughest because your entire workflow changes and everything. And the truly dedicated sales reps would always come to me and say, okay, Dan, I need assistance here because I am not sure how to keep this workflow going when I have this addition added to it. And I feel like I'm losing my sales end to maintain the operations end. And yes, sales is important, but you can close customers all day long if you can't keep them through operations, right? So you're in this juxtaposition. And what do? So it was creating that flow that really worked for them as an individual. I was asked by somebody recently, so if you had, 15 salespeople, how would you train them? And I said, individually. I said, what? Well, yeah. I said, the reality is we don't all learn the same. We don't all have the same goals. So if we train salespeople with this, and I'm going to call it a carrot, but you guys know what I'm talking about. This carrot of commission, maybe the carrot for them is 9 weeks vacation. Maybe the carrot for them is, pat on the back. And I know it sounds silly, but not to say they don't want the commission check, but the commission is just a result of what they're doing. What about the pat on the back? Right? What about the, hey, thanks for everything. Here's a gift card for you and your wife or you and your husband or you and your spouse to go to the Keg or, a nice restaurant. Go enjoy a night on us, right? Hey, go take your significant other out for dinner and bring me the receipt on Monday. Like those are appreciation things that some people might thrive on and others don't care. Like I'm the type of person where I don't need the kudos. I can see what I build. I know the second I screw up, and that's what I need. But I know people that need kudos. They need the good job, and the pat on the back. To me, that doesn't make me work any harder. Is it nice? For sure. But it doesn't make me work any harder. It doesn't make me think differently. It doesn't make me produce differently. Because I just look at it a different way. Right? So it's understanding that. And it's really getting in depth with this idea of why we do what we do. So that's my big message for today. This long roundabout way to get to that message is, start looking at why you're doing what you're doing. If you're used to it, or you've done it before, and now all of a sudden that is, for whatever reason, inside of you is saying, I got to change it. I got to change it. I got to do something. Pay attention to what that is. Analyze that, mull it over, chew it over, and figure out, is this really working? Is this adding to my next level results? Or do we think it's going to take away? It's going to subtract from my next level result. And then you can make an educated choice. Do you add it into your workflow? Do you not? Biggest thing, especially in today's day and age, is consistency. And again, I want to apologize for the lack of consistency for the show. We've got some big changes coming up in the next week, and hopefully those changes will add a lot more consistency. You have my promise. Just assured it's going to get dark tonight. I'm working on it, and I'm going to fix it. And the next level of the logistics life is going to be spectacular. Until next time, my friends, remember, go out there, make every call educational, and crush your sales. Have a great weekend for all of you in Canada. Enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend. We'll see y'all on Tuesday next week. Take care.